and welcome back to my channel. I have been planning and wanting to film this episode for such a long time. Knitting books. Knitting books. I've gathered all my favorite knitting books. Some are very old, some I have used so much, and some are newer. And I just figured if you're into knitting or crafts, I'm sure you've browsed around in the hobby section of your local bookstore. I absolutely love both books, first of all, and knitting. So walking around, and actually I feel like it's different when you browse or scroll through Instagram or Pinterest. It's different to actually have a book in your hand and have it printed out and getting all that inspiration and of course the patterns. I also subscribe and buy lots of knitting magazines, but I feel like that's a whole different category, so maybe we have to make a different video with that. But in this video, I'm going to be sharing my favorite knitting books. Now, there are lots of knitting books out there. I couldn't choose everyone or each one for this video, and I would love to hear if you have a favorite knitting book. So please let me know in the comments below if there's a knitting book, well, from my selection that you like, or a knitting book that I didn't mention or I didn't know about. I'm always looking for more books, and even though our bookshelves are pretty filled, there's always a little bit more room for a knitting book. My selection consists of, I have a few that are specifically for designing knitwear. So I think we're gonna come to those last. So there's some few books that I use a lot when I design knitwear. So if you're interested in that or those kind of resources, stick around to the end, because we're gonna start with, let me put this here. We're gonna start with more like knitting pattern books and just inspiration, and there are so many out there, but I'm going to show some of my favorites. And we are going to start with the lovely book called Worsted, a knitwear collection curated by Aimée. Gille. I'm not completely sure how you pronounce her last name, so sorry if I say that wrong. But she's basically the woman behind the yarn brand La Bien-Aimée, or La Bien-Aimée. And this book is so pretty. It's published by Laine, which is actually a Finnish, they have a knitting magazine, and then they also publish lots of books. And this book, if I'm not mistaken, was actually nominated one of the most beautiful books in Finland. I think it was published, was it this year or last year? And rightly so. It is absolutely gorgeous, the photos in this book, and I love that it's not so big. Like, this is a book that you could have in your bag on the go when you're knitting. So I think it's really, like, I really like the size of it. And I should say at the moment, I mean, I feel like I talk about this all the time, but I am also in the process of writing my first knitting book. So these are really the kind of things that I'm interested in and thinking about, and I would love to hear also your preferences. Is that how we say preferences when it comes to knitting books? I know I have some preferences, but I'm really curious to hear yours. So let me know all of these kind of things also in the comment below. I would love to hear and geek out just about books and knitting books in general. But this one, so there are 10 different designers who she's, I guess, commissioned work from, and they've worked, like, most of them are color work, and 10 different designers. I believe there are, some of them made like multiple projects, but mostly it's sweaters. And I just got so inspired when I saw this, and I really feel like knitting something in this book. So this one is definitely one that I recommend, that if you can get your hands on it, to get it, because it's just so nice to have in your knitting shelf, just for the pictures alone. I would say, even if you don't knit, I think the pictures alone make this a book that you want to have in your shelf. Okay, moving on to the next one. It is just called Strik by Laerke. Bhagat. Larki Bhagat, I might pronounce also this name so wrong, but she is a Danish knitwear designer. This book currently, I think, is only available in Danish. My native language is Swedish, so actually Danish is okay. Like, when it's written, it's actually pretty easy for me to understand. So I went ahead and ordered it in Danish because I'm so impatient, but I think it is gonna come out in English. She has a very unique style. It's all about this just tie knots method, using scrap yarn, combining different fibers and colors and all kind of crazy things. And it's really kind of like this, you know, rock star of the knitting world, I would say. And I'm just so fascinated by her whole philosophy of really, like, it's not about being perfect, it's about going with the flow. And she just talks about the whole kind of knitting experience in, I think, such a down-to-earth and really kind of funny way. Like, there's a lot of somehow humor in her way. And I just love that, because I think sometimes with knitting, we can get so caught up in trying to be perfect, and like also this idea of knitting having to be something almost zen-like, and you just go into this knitting space. And sure, there is that, but also sometimes it's very frustrating, and you know, it's impatient, and it's kind of troublesome, and like you rip it out and you have to try again. So all these things. So I think it's nice that she kind of brings that to the table, and she's just like such a cool person, I think. So this one, and it's like really, like, you get so much in this book. You get so many of her insights and just like lots of different photos and inspiration, and you can even see like the whole cover of this book, like this pink and green. This is apparently, I read somewhere, her favorite colors. Like, this is not your typical standard knitting book. Like, this is definitely something else, but something that I've had in the bed at night, even though it is a heavy piece. Just browsing through it and looking at it, and just gotten so much inspiration. I haven't actually knitted anything from the book yet, like follow the pattern, but I have used her technique and kind of this idea of just using, you know, some scrap yarns, just taking the next ball from the pile to knit this, which is, the design is called Stay Up Till Dawn, and it's a pattern that is going to be released in my book in the fall. And I just made one that is just white, and then I also wanted to try like something really different, like what happens if I knit the same design but completely like crazy colors. So that was very inspired by her. The next one, so okay, we went to Denmark. Next we're gonna go to Norway. Ida Wirak Trettevik, she is called Vitre Design on Instagram. She has lots of patterns on her website. This one I have in Finnish, but I think you can get it for sure in Norwegian, and I'm actually not sure other languages if you can get it in English as well, but I definitely recommend to check her out on Instagram if you like kind of very simple, kind of Scandinavian, trendy. Like, she's also like super cool and very trendy and contemporary. Her designs are very simple, quite down to earth, like really easy to wear with anything, I would say. And this book, I don't know, I just recently I've been really obsessed with her style, and just like followed her on Instagram like every day, going to see what she's up to and what she knits. And I like, somehow I myself can sometimes get a little bit carried away with like, oh, like these different kind of things that I want to combine, and I feel like she's so clear in her style, and she's so secure in her design identity. So I really get inspired by that, and really when you want to just kind of strip it away from anything kind of like fuzz or frills or anything like that, then this is the book for you. And also the photos are so nice and calm. There's like lots of nature in them, and the colors. So yeah, this one is a book that I really, I just like, it makes me good to browse through this book. From Norway, we go to Portugal. So Rosa Pomar, I've spoken about before. So I was in Rosa Pomar's yarn shop in Portugal, or in Lisbon, when I was in Portugal now in March. And then I found out that she has even written a whole book, which is called Portuguese Knitting. And I haven't had a chance to read all of this yet, but she talks about the history of Portuguese knitting, and it's so fascinating to see all these photos and just read more about the history of knitting. And then there are also patterns in this book, and the yarns, like her yarns, they look, and I had a chance to try them out or squeeze them and squish them in her shop. I love that they're like very rustique, and like the colors are really deep and vibrant, and I don't know, that like this is a very different kind of aesthetic, I would say. Again, like this is maybe more like traditional knitting, I would say. And there's like lots of socks and mittens and things, and I don't know, I just can't wait. Like, I really want to learn more about just the history of knitting and how it's evolved in different countries. So this one I just ordered online. I have it in English. I'm sure you can get it in Portuguese, maybe some other languages as well. So if you're interested in kind of the history of knitting, but also then to get some knit patterns, this book is for you, and I can't wait to read more about it. Okay, we have one more book before coming to some Finnish designers books. The next book comes from a knitwear designer called Brandi Shane Harper. It's called Knitting for Radical Self-Care, a Modern Guide. I believe Brandi Shane Harper lives in Brooklyn, New York. This was, when I saw this book, was the first time I had heard about her. But this is really something different. Like, not only are there gorgeous, gorgeous patterns and these yarns that are from, I believe they're all from Pearl Soho, which one day I'm gonna go to Pearl Soho in New York, this kind of legendary shop. I hope I get to go one day. But she talks about knitting for radical self-care, and then she states these 8 principles that each pattern, or here it says, each pattern's essay is rooted in the following 8 self-care principles, all an exploration of how to love ourselves and each other a little deeper in the context of making. So she really ties knitting into something larger than just the act of knitting, and what it can how it can be something for self-care, I would say. So then she talks about intersectionality, make mistakes, identifying challenges, striving for simplicity, striking a balance, reading the work, mindfulness in practice, and adventurous beginner mind. And I just loved reading her, how she writes about it, and that it's okay to make mistakes, and that's part of the process, and she still makes mistakes, and all these things. Again, taking it quite like down to earth, but then giving it a different context. So this is a book that I have yet to like try out any of the patterns, but I love, like, she has like very kind of uses quite chunky and bulky yarns. The colors are amazing. The photos are, again, so beautiful. So, and again, like, this is also quite small, like really handy, so you could have this in your handbag on the go. Okay, next I chose some Finnish designers, and at least this first one I know that you can get in English. It's called Urban Knit. It's by Laine Publishing, and this is actually the same publisher that is going to be publishing my book, so it's very exciting. And Laine Publishing, you can already see, like, the cover is stunning, and her designs, like, they're very modern, like very, well, the name says it, like urban knit, like you could wear these in the city. And I feel like with her designs, there's always like some details, like something very quite simple, but just like a genius idea, which takes it to a new level. And the colors, they're very kind of muted, like very kind of this Nordic vibe. And the photos are so gorgeous. Like, you could have this as a coffee table book. And also there's lots of photos from Helsinki. So that is, you know, my city. So that's also, I feel like, very nice. And I haven't yet tried out any of the patterns here, but there's so many patterns that I would like to try out. And it's just a really pretty book to look at, to have in your house. And then, of course, the actual knitwear is just so yummy. The second Finnish designer book that I want to bring to your attention, it's called Neulematkalla. It's by Sari Nordlund and Erika Appelström. I'm not sure if this is actually available in English, but at least it's available in Finnish. And this one, I actually met Sari for the first time a couple of months ago. We went to have some coffee and just talk about all like things knitting, and she's been a knitwear designer much longer than I have. So it was really interesting, and they made this book. And again, like there are some stories, and the patterns are gorgeous. Like, I feel like Sari has such a classical style. She also has a YouTube channel, by the way. And of course, like, lots of patterns online. And there's always like lots of, or in most of her designs, there are like lots of cables and really intricate projects. So if you're looking for that kind of style, I would definitely encourage you to check out this book and check out Sari's account on Instagram, or also her YouTube channel. Okay, the last Finnish book, or I think, no, maybe this isn't the last, the second to last Finnish knitting book, is called Contrasts. But this one you can also get in English. Mine is in English. This is also from Laine Publishing, so that is the first one. And this one is really new. It's called Contrasts, Textured Knitting. And these designs, again, like the book, the whole kind of aesthetic and the vibe of it is very, I think, Nordic, a little bit moody, but very kind of romantic in the sense that these are very kind of feminine, and there's always like lots of interesting texture in them, as it says. And I can't wait. I really like, there was already one shawl which I thought was so genius. She has made the shawl in such a way so that you always have, like, there isn't a wrong side, because I feel like that's often a problem with scarves. So I think here, if I understand it correct, like this shawl, you have those cables on both sides, which I think is such a genius idea. So those like things like that makes me think like Mayu is such a genius when it comes to knitting and knitwear design. So this one is like super, super fresh and new. So I'll put the link in the description below so you can go and check it out from Laine. All right, now we are going back in time, my friends. This is also a Sanna Vatanen. It's called Sticka och virka med restgarn. I have it in Swedish. I haven't checked if it's for sure available in Finnish, but I'm not sure if it's available in English. But maybe it's just fun to see what kind of book this is. So this is actually also about using scrap yarn, and this I've had, my mom bought this for me, let me see what year. This, I've had it for so many years. Okay, so it's printed in 2011, so it's over 11 years ago. Wow, wow, that is crazy. And from this, I got so much inspiration to do. I knitted some socks and I knitted a whole cardigan just inspired by this. So, well, as you can see, like, I'm not somebody who maybe buys knitting books for the actual pattern. I usually get inspired and then I will adapt and tweak them for my own designs, but I still love to just like read patterns and see how somebody's, like how a designer has structured or constructed something. So, and this, this one I thought was so amazing. And I actually have done one cardigan very much inspired by this. And then I was gonna do like a whole blanket inspired by this technique, but I never finished that. Maybe I will one day still. But this one is like an old Goldie, one that I keep coming back to and like used so much as a source of inspiration. Okay, and then we have another super oldie. You can see like it's even, this one has been through a lot. I have gotten, or especially when I was really into color work, I've knitted, used some of the motifs or the patterns in this for example, this cardigan that I knitted for my mom. Unfortunately, it's a little tight. I should have made it a little bit bigger, but I mean, look at this. And what I did was I used one of the motifs in this, and I also, I'm kind of bummed out because I have thrown away some of the things that I did. I did another cardigan in this gorgeous like turquoise color. But then I threw it out because it was too small and there was like some other issues with it. But this one was a real source of inspiration just because of the motifs themselves. Like they are knitted with extremely small needles. So I didn't do that. I used, I think, 4mm needles for this, but one of those again that I've had for many years, and I used it for a lot of projects back in the day. All right, that's all kind of like the more traditional pattern books. And now, as promised, some books that I use in my design work. And maybe the first one, which when I started to make my book, because I had written some knitting patterns before, but it's a whole different game. Luckily, I have a technical editor, Heli, who is helping me and editing all the patterns, but it's still like, it's such... There's so many things to consider. So I bought this. So The Beginner's Guide to Writing Knitting Patterns by Kate Atherley. So this really goes through what to think about when you're going to write a knitting pattern. It goes really through it. I haven't read all of it, but definitely got a lot of good advice from this book and just things to consider. And of course, when you are a knitter, you have already your own preferences, but just some things that I thought were really nice to just have somebody give you some guidance. Okay, what is best practice? It's like with some things that it's really like, oh, how should I put this? She gave some gives some really good advice in this book. So if you are looking to, or if maybe you're already writing and doing your own knitting patterns, I can really recommend this book. It's a little overwhelming. Like there's a lot of text in here, but it's good for when you have maybe a question, you're thinking, oh, how should I do this? This is a good guide for that. All right, another one that I have used and keep using and keep coming back to is an amazing book called, well, I'm actually not sure. Well, it's called 260 knitting patterns, but I also have it in Finnish, so it's a kind of a funny story because this one, it's by a designer called Hitomi Shida, probably saying that name wrong, but Hitomi Shida, and it's basically just full of different textures, different laces, cables. They are absolutely gorgeous. And the first time I found this book was actually in San Francisco in a random bookshop. But they had like only, I feel like, Japanese books. So this one is in Japanese, so I couldn't even read it, but I just thought like, oh, this is so exclusive, like I need to have it. And then just like a few years ago, I think, I found this suddenly in Finnish, which was so amazing because that meant that I can actually understand what it says. So then I bought it again. So I have it both in Japanese and Finnish, as one does. But this one, I'm sure you can order it online, I'm pretty sure. And especially if you're into like designing your own knits and you like textures and cables, then this is such a go-to Bible for me. Okay, I was gonna say I've saved the best for last, but I don't think I can really call this maybe the best, but this is the oldest knitting book I have. It is called Neulajan käsikirja, which in Finnish means a knitter's guidebook. And it's so funny. You can see here on the first page by my handwriting that this was not yesterday that I got this book. It's again a book that my mom gave me, and let me see. Oh yes, you can also see here I've made some notes, so it's not unclear who this book belongs to. And this one is copyrighted in 2000, so I have been 12 when I received this book. And this is a book that I have used a lot of these textures and patterns when I've designed different knits and just knitted stuff for myself. Like it really goes through the basics, and then it has just some different patterns and textures. And I love that it's just so simple. Oh, I didn't even say who it's from. Leslie Stanfield and Melody Griffiths. So thank you, Leslie and Melody. You really helped me through when I was a teenager and I was 12 years old knitting. I learned lots of new things from this book because back then there wasn't YouTube. I remember there was this one knitting show, I think it was called like Nitty Gritty or something, I think with Vicky Howell, I think she's called. I remember that was on, but otherwise it was really like books and magazines, and that's really where you could learn things. So now with YouTube and Pinterest and Instagram, there's like so much out there, so you can learn so much easier. But back then it was really just from books, like there weren't videos. So this has a special place in my heart. I'm never gonna throw this out, even though maybe I don't use it. Well, that's not true. Sometimes I use it for the textures, even though they're pretty basic, but it just has a special place in my heart. Oh my god. All right, that is it. Those were my favorite knitting books, or my favorite current knitting books. I've just actually might have ordered a few more. But you can never have too many knitting books. Let me know in a comment also what your recommendations are. What is your favorite knitting book? I would love to hear them, and probably some other people would also love to hear them. And also let me know if you'd like me to make a video about some knitting magazines, because there are so many out there, so many nice ones, and maybe there are some that I know about that you don't know about, maybe you know about some that I don't know about, and then we can just like swap notes. Alright, as always, you can come and say hi. I'm over at Kutavakika on Instagram, so you can come and say hi over there. I already said that. Alright, hope you found this fun, or you got some inspiration to maybe go out and get some knitting books for yourself, or head to your local yarn shop. No, yeah, local yarn shop or local bookshop. Usually the yarn shops also carry some knitting books. Alright, I will see you in the next one. Take care. Bye!